with his banner flying there of the twin-tailed lion, Simon De Montfort and the baronial cavalry just about to take their position prior to the battle.
And unfortunately, Henry has fallen out with his chief advisor, Simon De Montfort, and he's got to the stage now where war is inevitable. So in the town of Lewes, the Royal Army has concentrated and they're awaiting news of the rebel.
There were a small group of men who were out and about fairly early in the morning. And again, as Howard said, what they don't know is De Montfort's troops are pretty much on top of them.
But rather gamely, the skirmishers are forming a shield wall and holding their ground, but the baronial are allowing the archers to do the damage now, and they will probably drive those men-at-arms back to the other end and into the town of Lewes, because really it looks like the Royal Army are now in a bit of a bind, and news will now be filtered.
So, as far as De Montfort's concerned, he's got a pretty target-rich environment.
Those are real arrows. They are.
And his whole army is following him.
So you look out for that. Very, very easy to spot in the battle. Ooh, taunting!
I imagine those royal skirmishers will now be feeling extremely uncomfortable and exposed, so they won't be pressing their attack anymore. Holding their ground at the moment, which is very brave of them, considering they are hugely outnumbered, but they know they can't hold that position for long.
I think De Montfort also has the position where I believe he's got the hill as well, hasn't he?
And De Montfort is cheering his men as they come on the field, and they're cheering him back. Marvellous. Their morale has never been higher, because so far it's all going De Montfort's way in this campaign. The Royal Cavalry and Infantry, surprise and morale on his side, because the King's troops will now be, frankly, a bit freaked out.
So the King's ruling style has been somewhat autocratic up till now, and this is the culmination of several years of frustration on the Barons' part. The Barons have
tactics to use in the battle. But whatever the tactics will be, we can guarantee they're going to be incredibly unsubtle, because this is the 13th century. There's no gunpowder, there's no long-range sniping, apart from maybe a few elite archers. It's all about hand-to-hand, bloody fighting, face-to-face with your enemy, smelling his breath as you kill him, cutting his head and limbs as the blood spurts over you. There's nothing pleasant about 13th century warfare, despite the rather attractive heraldry of the troops. This is basically organised murder. Now, where is Henry III? Oh, as you can see, the King, he's following on with the 3rd Division of Infantry. You can see him is in his royal coat of arms as well.
This sort of thing happened quite a lot in the medieval warfare. We notice at the Battle of Tewkesbury there is a side.
So now the armies are lined up, and they're looking at eyeing each other up, and I imagine, as usual with these things, it will be a cavalry engagement that opens the fight. Now, although we can give you a headlong cavalry attack into lines of infantry and scattering them, and whilst that would look really, really great, unfortunately that would leave an awful lot of our reenactors dead or severely injured. So we have to separate infantry and cavalry. So when the cavalry of a particular lord attack, so do the infantry. That's how it generally goes, unless they have been specifically divided. He has stepped forward with his royal banner, and he's done this to encourage his men and to make the rebels rethink this. The King, you can be excommunicated, and that means going to hell. And for an ordinary foot soldier, radically motivated and by the pursuit of wealth, by capturing and ransoming enemy knights, they're more likely to be happy to lay into the other slayers. The knights, the professional soldiers that are employed by those knights, and the poor peasants that have to come along because they're told to.
So what you need to imagine now is each one of these men standing on the field is in fact 10 men, and that gives you more of an idea of the size of the engagement.
But they didn't generally last very long because it's very easy to become extremely exhausted in armour. Ah, here we go. Looks like the baronial cavalry are starting the battle by charging Prince Edward's horse. So give them a cheer, ladies and gentlemen, the cavalry Prince Edward. Cries of Edward and De Montfort as his troops, cavalry clash on the medieval battlefield because the two armies are not wearing uniforms. It's not like, say, the 18th century where red coats would fight Frenchmen in white coats. Everybody here is dressed in the heraldry of their particular lord. And that lord's allegiance, as we've said, can vary from side to side. So really, when you're in this melee, you're trying to work out who's who. And the chances are, if someone's trying to kill you, he's on the other side. But not necessarily. It could be blue on blue, as we call it. So there is always a bit of chaos, and it's really important for the cavalry to try and keep a semblance of order as they charge into the enemy, rather than descending into a huge mounted mob. Now, so far, it looks completely inconclusive. There's several groups of riders charging around. You can see De Montfort's personal flag bearer there with the white twin-tailed lion on the red background. I don't know if you can see, Kat, at your end of the battlefield, if there's actually any semblance of order in there, or is it complete chaos?
None whatsoever, Howard. No, it is an absolute melee. It's just man on man. I assume they know by the colours who it is they're fighting. As you so rightly said, it could get very, very confusing because you're just looking out for the colours of the person that you know that this morning was your enemy, and you're hoping they haven't changed.
Army a cheer, they're winning!
However, though, Prince Edward has got out of town. He's going to chase them miles and miles away. This may just change the way the battle goes, because most of his men have gone with him.
And indeed, Edward spent 3 hours chasing the baronial cavalry and having a lovely time riding around the countryside thinking, haven't we done well? And having completely forgotten that his cavalry should be supporting his father on the battlefield. So now we are left with no cavalry on either side. And it's time now for Simon De Montfort to decide, do I attack and do I smash the Royal Army? Or for Henry to say, right.
Feeling they're going to kick this off in fine royal style.
Yeah, and off they go. The right wing is advancing, the left wing and the centre in line, slightly in echelon, which is to say that the three divisions are not quite in line. That actually helps. You can manoeuvre your troops more easily if they're not in one line.
Without being funny, doesn't that look magnificent? I know it's brutal and it's warfare, but don't the colours look great? Oh, in at the run there, look at that. That was De Montfort's own bodyguard, own troop there.
Now the masses of men are clashing. Both armies consisting of fit, fresh soldiers because they haven't seen combat for a while. So at the moment it's very much even Stevens. We don't expect to see many casualties at the start of a battle like this because all the soldiers are at their full potential. So they're not only trying to kill the other side but making sure they don't get injured in return. So the combination of being careful and the armour that they wear will probably mean few casualties at this stage.
And De Montfort didn't take part in the cavalry charge just now. He's still there leading his troops. I think that's a very wise decision because when the commander's gone, yes, he has able barons who can lead the army, but he is the one who's engineered all this. He's the brains behind it all. He's the one that was meeting with the king 3 times a year up to this point in order to keep the king in line, in order to stop him being too autocratic. And he's the one with the most to lose, because he is going to be seen as the biggest traitor. And, as Howard said, traitors get excommunicated. But not just that, they get executed. And for medieval people, the excommunication would actually be the more terrifying option.
What's interesting, of course, is although Henry is the king, he is no tactical genius. He's more of an administrator, so he's leaving the battle to his commanders. And that's all fine and dandy, but his chief commander, Edward I, has left the field. So he's only left with Richard of Cornwall, who commands one of the divisions, and he's left holding the baby. Now, he is no tactical genius. So quite likely, Henry is in deep trouble. I can see the armies are withdrawing. Hand-to-hand fighting is absolutely exhausting, and it's when you get exhausted that you end up dead because you lose concentration. It also means that your ranks and files get completely disordered. Now, forget Hollywood films. The knights didn't run around willy-nilly and try and hit anybody they could find. It just didn't happen. It's all about cohesive units of soldiers. And as you can see, both armies are divided into 3 divisions, distinct divisions of troops under a commander who are trying to keep them in check. And that includes withdrawing them to reform them when things are getting sticky, because if you don't, that's when you end up with your division being routed and slaughtered. And both sides very sensibly have drawn apart, at least for the moment, and I can now see some archers shooting as they soften up the enemy. But archery doesn't really play at Agincourt 100 years later, actually less than 100 years later. At that stage, the archers really did rule supreme on the battlefield. But in this period, it's about the mounted knights and the men-at-arms. What a shame that the mounted knights have all disappeared.
Yes, they are just taking on water. They seem very, very confident, I have to say, in spite of losing their cavalry temporarily so early on in the fight. They do seem to be in remarkably good spirits. They're just taking it easy, they're just taking their time, and they appear to be waiting to see what happens next.
So they're probably hoping that Edward would be sensible and come back with the cavalry, because that's what I would do if I was a commander. I'd think, where's Edward gone? Oh, surely, he must realise he's needed here on the battlefield, not gallivanting around the Sussex countryside. It's absurd.
But it does make you wonder, doesn't it, what was going through his mind at that point? Was it just a case he wanted to chase De Montfort's men down and come back and say, look, I'm this triumphant? Or was something else at play? We'll never know.
I've always had this personal theory that the average IQ of a cavalryman equals his horse, so maybe this is a case in point.
Absolutely.
So another pause in the battle. Each side eyeing. And here they go. Ladies and gentlemen, if you support Simon De Montfort, cheer on his troops as they attack.
And then the King's Centre is going in there. Can you see? Going in at a reasonable pace against... Listen to this.
Oh, that's about to crash into each other. Look at this. Wow. This is shield on shield.
Did you hear that?
Shield on shield, sword on sword, spears crashing against helmets and armour. Most of these soldiers are wearing what's known as mail, not chainmail, but mail, which is interlocked steel ringed armour, which is quite effective at warding off blows from swords, not so from sharp arrows, but good swords.
Yeah, you get penetrating wounds.
Into each other. Look at this. Wham! This is shield on shield.
Did you hear that?
Shield on shield, sword on sword, spears crashing against...
Sword blows, you get bad bruising, you get broken bones through it, but it will stop you winding up copiously dead. Quite different to the later, the Wars of the Roses, where they had no shields, almost no shields, because they were wearing the shield, they were wearing the plate armour instead. Now, De Montfort's troop appeared to be making, well, I'd say they were retreating quite severely. That doesn't look too good, does it?
No, it looks like the Londoners on the left wing are broken. That's not good at all.
It's not.
Broken, and they're falling back in disorder. The Royal Right. Let's see who wins. And De Montfort's urging his right-hand division forward. Cheer them on, ladies. Cheer them on.
Give us some noise. It's hot out here, and I'm not even wearing armour.
Yeah, these soldiers will be starting to cook slowly.
Oh look, the Royalists have come round. Sorry, the De Montfort's men have come round the flank. They've actually flanked.
Oh my God, the Royal Army's falling to pieces.
They've surrounded them. They're running, look.
The censor's running, they're running for it, they're looking for it. Ladies and gentlemen, De Montfort's winning. The Royal Army's falling apart.
I would say he's a local boy. He's not. He just been around here. However, give him a cheer.
Give him a cheer. Okay, he's French, but give him a cheer anyway.
Yeah, I know. You can't help it.
Look at this, the utter rout of the Royal Army. But where's Henry? Has he managed to get off the field? I can't see him. Look at this, it's slaughter centre being cut down.
From my vantage point here, I believe that Henry has actually left the field. He's running.
Kings aren't supposed to run, are they?
Kings aren't supposed to run. No. These colours don't run. Well, this one just has.
I can see some knights doing a fighting retreat from my position on the far right of the field here. There's still some troops giving a semblance of resistance, but it's all over for the Royal Army. What an utter catastrophe. So, ladies and gentlemen, the Royal Army has fallen to pieces, and it is the great triumph of Simon De Montfort. And history tells us that King Henry III was captured shortly afterwards as a fugitive and forced to come to terms with De Montfort, but more about that later. Edward turns up later, just in time to see the rest of his army running away. So, what do you imagine he felt like when he realised that by charging off the battlefield, he had probably caused the disaster that has overcome his dad? And I would not like to be Edward when he met his dad after that battle. Because Edward himself had to surrender to Montfort as well, and they would spend some months in captivity with De Montfort as the de facto ruler of England. So let's have a huge cheer and round of applause for our reenactors, the Battle of Evesham.